So what happens when you die? Some would say that it's not meant for us to know, while others would say there's no way to know until you die. Some simply believe that when the sun sets on your soul, everything just fades to black, and then nothing more. I would say that they are simply not good listeners. For thousands of years, many millions of us have shared our glimpse of the other side. Some of us have died and returned, left our body, shared in the death experience of another, had after-death communications with a deceased loved one, remembered a past life, encountered a guardian spirit or an angel, and many other spiritually transformative experiences, giving us a peek. We have tried to share what society calls death is really not the end, just like our birth is really not the beginning. Birth and death are just different forms of many transitions we experience on the path of our existence. Meet Ronald Thomas Degenhardt. He's the 14-year-old boy sandwiched between his two sisters. In a few years, he would be a Marine. No, this is not the way he died. I'll get to that in a minute. He's just goofing around with his buddies. He was always a practical joker, when he was living and after he died. This is the Sinclair station he owned after the Marines. One day, this cute girl pulled in with a broken muffler. That's her car behind them. Ron loaned her his prized personal car while he fixed hers. And this is what happened next. The ripple effect from that broken muffler keeps growing. That is me, held up by my proud father. Little would he know when this picture was taken that he would already be halfway through this incarnation. My dad would work very hard in life and experience many successes. He would manage a very successful insurance agency. He studied and earned several degrees. He earned his CLU in insurance, studied hard, and got his law degree. He became assistant district attorney of several prominent Tennessee counties. He was good. He was known for being tough, put many away for a long time. Still, his parents never suspected when this picture was taken that their son would be waiting for each of them when they crossed over instead of the other way around. I made this cake for my dad's 40th birthday. 5 cakes later, during his 45th birthday celebration, he would double over in excruciating pain. A quick trip to the hospital would reveal his impending death sentence. Inoperable terminal cancer. Get your affairs in order. They gave him 90 days to live. He made it about 100 days in that body. These are some of the last pictures of Ron before he crossed over. It's interesting to note that his smiles were notably bigger in his last days. He grew more spiritually than in all his prior days. This is one of the last pictures I have with my dad. He worked almost all of his final 100 days. Then the tumor on his liver cut off the blood flow to his kidneys, sealing his fate. He checked himself into St. Thomas Hospital, slipped into a coma, and succumbed to the toxins poisoning his blood. Most believed that this was the end of Ron Degenhardt. His lights went out, his body ceased to exist. They were right about one thing. Indeed, he left behind a body. But the first thing Ron noticed when his body ceased in that hospital bed was that he continued to exist. On his final breath, he popped out of that body, flew through the ceiling of the hospital, traveled over 20 miles to my mom's house where I lay sleeping, and would have fun playing a joke on me from the other side.
Scott, can you briefly describe to us what your experience was and how long ago it was?
It was in 1982.
My father was dying of terminal cancer and then died. The night he died, I was at home asleep at the time when suddenly a spirit came beside my bed. I sat up, immediately recognized it as my father, and he was feeling absolutely wonderful. I was awakened by this spirit that zoomed right over from my feet, right over the top of me, and hovered on the left side of my bed at my shoulders. It was sort of a glowing, misty cloud is the best way to describe it, but I immediately recognized it as my father. He was emanating these absolute feelings of well-being and joy and freedom. While my father was hovering beside my bed and we were just sort of basking in each other's presence, feeling each other's feelings, the best way to describe it, a connection opened up off to the distance. I could feel an awareness off into a further off place. I could hear other beings talking amongst themselves, and they were what I would describe as angels. But my father turned and looked in that direction. And then he looked back at me and acknowledged and immediately said that they're calling me now and I have to go. And when he said that, there was more than just that. There was this complete sense of mission and understanding that he had of where it was he had to go next, and that he had to go with these beings, and it was time for him to proceed to this next realm.
From Nashville, Tennessee, you're listening to Beyond Reason, for those who dare to think. I'm Garland Evans.
And I'm Teddy Bart. Welcome, everybody, to another session of Beyond Reason. And Scott, welcome to Beyond Reason.
Glad to be here.
Did you have a near-death experience, or did someone close to you have one?
There, and he came into the room. I was there with him when his tunnel opened up. I saw it open up off to the distance. I could hear beings that I call angels, for the lack of knowing what else to call them other than they were spiritual beings that called him and told him it was time for him to go. And he disappeared off into that tunnel, and it was then minutes later the phone rang, and it was St. Thomas calling to say that he had just died. And of course I told my mom as she came in to give me the news that I already know he was just here, and by the way, he's doing fantastic.
And you must have felt very, very grateful for this unconditional love that your father, in his 11th hour, would reach out and want to, embrace you, his son.
The only way to describe it is it was a privilege to know how he's doing after he died.
Yeah. Were you giddy at his funeral?
When I walked in and the first time saw his body, I was still buzzing from the experience. And to be real honest, I almost laughed because I saw here was this hunk of dirt that didn't have anything to do with my father, and here were all these people sitting around crying over all this, and it seemed so silly because I knew where my father was and how he was feeling at the time, and I wanted to tell them, you don't need to cry, he's doing just fine.
And you're not afraid to die either, are you?
No.
Because of this experience?
Yes.
And I wasn't in no tunnel. I was in a dark room, but I felt it, and it had 4 corners to it. I come to this other door, and the light from it I couldn't describe. There was 2 little baby angels there just hovering. I couldn't see from the waist down. All I could see was the waist up.
Near-death encounters are like fingerprints, similar at the surface, yet unique in deeper detail.
This is the support group I started in the Middle Tennessee area called the Survivors of Death Network. This is the very first meeting and is being featured on a documentary called Glimpse of Glory. I started this group meeting because while on my quest to understand what happened to me with my father, I discovered many others have had a variety of spiritually transformative experiences, and they too need someone of like mind and spirit to share it with. I learned that the single most important thing you should do after having an experience is to talk to others who have it as well. I firmly believe all of these experiences are meant to be shared and are for the benefit of the collective human race. It was amazing to find that after only about 6 months of these meetings, I discovered all of us on our own quests had the exact same questions. I thought I was the only one. Why am I so different? Am I crazy? Why did this happen to me? Why was I sent back? What am I supposed to do with the experience? Are experiences of other cultures and religions the same? How do I know it was real, and why don't people believe me? Well, you are not alone. What happens before, during, and after we die? What about heaven, hell, and the gray area? Have you had a past life? What is the meaning of life? Surviving Death Again chronicles our sojourn through the circle of incarnation, from before we were born, through birth, detailing life and its purpose, the transition we think of as death, our journeys after we die, the periods of reflection and reunion, and our choice to do it all again. If you want insight into the near-death, out-of-body, and past life experiences, angelic and deceased loved ones encounters, then this is the book for you. With hundreds of interviews and the most current scientific research, I document the clearest image yet of the big picture in this comprehensive owner's manual and encyclopedia to the spiritually transformative experience. Is there such a thing as reincarnation? Are angels real? Do we reunite with our loved ones after death? I share 3 decades of insight on these compelling questions. But most importantly, you need to know, you are not alone. You should know that you do not have to own a Kindle to read a Kindle book. Amazon provides a free application for any electronic device, allowing any to purchase and read Kindle books.